Hello, this is another one of my videos for my Illustrator classes. This one is looking at creating this little plant icon. This is for project 1 in my Illustrator classes, symbols. The main part of this is actually creating a cylinder. So we're going to begin with that idea and then modify from there. So we're going to start off by drawing an ellipse. So I'm choosing the ellipse tool. And then I'm going to increase the stroke a little bit. And then if I was to drag down and create a second ellipse, so I'm holding shift to keep it straight and option to duplicate it, you can then see that this could be the top of a cylinder and the bottom of a cylinder. And we can connect those two pieces together by using the rectangle tool. I have Smart Guides turned on, which is under View, Smart Guides, or Command U, Control U on a PC. If I put my cursor over this anchor point and drag across diagonally until I hit the anchor point on the opposite side, at the bottom ellipse, you can see that it connects it completely from this anchor point to this anchor point. Then if I select over these two shapes, the ellipse at the bottom and the rectangle, and unite them in Pathfinder, or with the Shape Builder tool, I could drag through the two shapes like that to create one shape. Then I send this to back. So Shift Command left square bracket or Object, Arrange, Center back. So that's how we create a cylinder. If we were to scale it, so if I double click on the scale tool, I could scale the bottom of this cylinder. So we end up with something that looks sort of like, you could use that as like a trash can, or in this case a plant pot. I'm going to move this down a little bit. You'll notice on the sides here that it has these little triangular pieces, which is where this shape is turning the angle of the stroke. So let's go to the stroke panel and set it so that the corners are rounded. That'll hide that intersection. Now we're going to draw a line that goes from like the middle of that ellipse up to form the stem on the plant. And again, I want the ends of this to be rounded. So let's go to stroke, change it to have a rounded cap. And then with the pen tool, I could simply add some curved shapes in here to create the branches on the plant. And we'll create a few coming off of those as well. So each of these is just a little curving line. From there, I'm going to add these little circles. So again, with the ellipse tool, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and then just drag out to create some circles. Once I've created one, actually, we can just hold Option and drag it. So here, obviously, I'm making them bigger than I'm doing on there, but that's the basic idea. The main idea of this is just that idea of creating a cylinder. And once you've created that cylinder, I'll show you how you could use that in a variety of different ways. I'm going to scale the bottom of this back up. And then if I was to rotate this, and let's, with the direct selection tool, let's drag the back end of this in a little bit. I think you can see now how that sort of looks a little bit like a wheel. I'm going to make the back end a little bit bigger again. So I want to have it get smaller this way to give it some perspective. But let's make it say 101%, and let's just go up, Command D. So Command D, remember, is transform again. So I did scale it 101%, and I'm just doing Command D until I get to this sort of size that I want. To make the inside of the wheel, I'm going to make a copy of this one. But I don't want it to scale the stroke and effects. I want to keep the stroke the same size. So let's change this to, say, 60% and hit copy. And then let's make another copy of this. So let's make it like that. And we'll have this go over to the side here. And then we can cut this out. So if I divide this here, we could then delete this part on the side, and then you've got sort of like the inside of the wheel, if you like. So this idea of starting with a cylinder, excuse me, got a little bit of a cough. Anyway, so the idea of this is starting with a cylinder. You can build all sorts of things out of cylinders. You know, like you could create a pencil, for instance. If I was to take this whole shape again and duplicate it, I think if I scale this 150% twice, it should be back to normal. Let's try it. No, 200, too much. Let's try 105%. That's pretty close. It's pretty close to being the same width, top and bottom. So if I make this longer, let's make the overall thing a lot smaller. So maybe 20%. Then if I take this bottom section and drag it down, on the top here I'm going to make a smaller, let's make the stroke a little bit less as well. Let's make a smaller version of this ellipse. So I double click on the scale tool, set it to about 30%, hit copy, change that into a fill with no stroke. And then at the bottom end of here we can draw a shape that goes from this point down to the middle, then back up. Then we can go across here, eyedropper this color, send it to the back. And then if we wanted to have the pencil have a lead, we could use this shape to cut that shape. So I'd actually want this to be a little bit smaller now. Let's try this at 90%. Maybe a lot smaller still. And then we can go down here. Still want it to be a little bit smaller. That's about right. So we only need this bottom section. I'm going to use the scissors here. Cut it there, and then delete this bit. Get rid of the fill, so we've only got a stroke. And then we can use this shape here to divide it. Now if I wanted it to be really accurate, actually I would want to scale it so that the edges fit precisely. But I don't think it needs to be absolutely precise for us to get this idea across. I'm just going to take a line out of here and a line out of here so that I make sure that it's going outside. And then let's just make it slightly bigger. So I'm going to do 101%. And then do that a couple of times until I feel like that's right on the edge. Okay, now once I've got to that point, I can select over this shape and divide it. Now we could make this a fill. And we've got the lead on the pencil. So that's the idea of the of starting with a cylinder. You can build all sorts of things out of that cylinder. Like starting with a cube, you could build all sorts of things out of a cube. You just make it sort of more elaborate, more complicated. So that's it for this video. Hope that was helpful. Bye for now.